We are 1 minute past the hour. Let's kick things off. My name's Erik, and I run product marketing here at Ziflow. And today, Tuesday, July 25th, we are proud to present to you our product release webinar for summer of 2023. I'm coming to you live from my home just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. Please use the webinar chat to let us know where you are dialing in from. Always curious to find out. We try to make use of Zoom's webinar technology very frequently here. So you'll see some polls that'll pop up a little bit later on in the webinar. And of course, we make ample use of Zoom's Q&A functionality. Hey, Josh from Richmond, Virginia, Casey from St. George, Utah, Bobby Love from Richardson, Texas. Love that, Texas, love. Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Hello, Ashley. And then, hey there, Larry from Ohio. A lot of people from all over the country and all over the world joining us for what is going to be a very exciting webinar today. Let's get into some logistics, shall we? Attendees will naturally be muted. And so we're going to keep everybody relatively quiet throughout the course of the webinar. You'll hear from myself and two of my colleagues. But we do want to make this as interactive as possible. Please submit your questions via the Q&A functionality here with Zoom. So you'll be able to ask as many questions as possible. And behind the scenes, we'll not only be answering them via chat, via text, but we'll also be answering quite a few of those questions live. The recording is going to be emailed to you. If you are a registered member of our webinar attendees, you will get a copy of this video. And we'll also be posting this video in an edited capacity on our YouTube channel as well. And that's logistics out of the way. Let's get to our agenda, shall we? Talk a little bit about the people who you will be hearing from today. We'll also talk about some of our amazing features, Ziflow 2.0, Ziflow Connect 2.0, our new Zybot to send an email, some auto compare features, a few other exciting features from summer of 2023 that we'll show you. We'll show off our summer 2023 product roundup video that we released today. And during that 5 minutes as the video is running, we encourage you to use the Q&A functionality of your using Zoom's Q&A functionality. And then we'll offer a bit more information, close things out, and have you mark your calendars for our next webinar. So let's do a little bit of a formal introduction of the people you'll be hearing from today. As I mentioned, my name's Erik Mansur. I'm your host for today's webinar, the head of product marketing here at Ziflow. I'm a big fan of Manchester United football and really enjoy a well-cooked steak. Also joining me, a friend and colleague, Mike Hrymak, one of our solutions engineers. Mike, why don't you tell everybody where you're dialing in from and what it is you do here at Ziflow?
Yeah, no, thank you all for joining us today. I am one of the solutions engineers here at Ziflow, so I do a lot of the product demonstrations for the company. I've been with Ziflow for about 1.5 years, and really in my role, I of course, show you what buttons do when you click them, but also just give you an idea of kind of why we do the things we do and how we can help with your creative collaboration process. So excited to give you guys a look at all of the new great things that our development team's been working so hard on for the past year. And excited to go through all of that.
In the middle of these three heads in bubbles is a great friend of mine and colleague, the producer, the man on the ones and twos, Nick Lanspa. Part of the reason why you all are here is because Nick and his team sent the emails to invite you. Nick, say hi to everybody and tell them where you're broadcasting from.
Hey everyone, I'm from Denver. Like I said, with Erik, I am a power user of Ziflow, so I'm super excited to see what we're going to be talking about here today. You won't be hearing much from me. I will be kind of in the background helping filter your questions to my colleagues.
And almost like our own Keir Egan, a constant presence in the background is our own CEO and co-founder, Anthony Velgamode, who will be answering quite a few technical questions via our Q&A capability. So if you are asking some questions that exceed the level of capability or knowledge that myself and Mike have, you might be hearing from Ant as well. So let's first start with a little bit of what we want to talk about, Ziflow 2.0. And let me give you a little bit of a backstory on this. Back in 2016, 2017, fast food and fast casual restaurants started putting video screens, literally TVs, behind the counter above the heads of the cashiers. And the reason why they did that was multiple fold. Not only would it help them sell more hamburgers and chicken sandwiches, but it also improved ultimately the user experience. A user, somebody who was going to the counter to buy some food, would walk up to the register and be able to look up and see and visualize exactly what they wanted to buy. If you are not up to speed on the various monthly promotions that Taco Bell had, you'd be able to see that and be reminded of it instantaneously. Rather than a static menu that never changed, and when it did, it had to be done manually, it was constantly dynamic and evolving. And the reason for all of this was to improve the user experience. So when somebody asks me, hey, why do you guys change your user interface? Why do you guys move buttons around and tweak things? My answer is never because I want it to look nice or I wanted to modernize what it is we're doing. It's really with the user in mind. How can I shave microseconds off of their workflow? How can I make their life just a touch easier so things get more intuitive and they can accomplish their work that much faster? That is the purpose of Ziflow 2.0, which is our ground up rebuild of our creative workflow dashboard. And I think in order to speak about Ziflow 2.0, Mike, I think we have to show off a little bit of Ziflow 1.0. And that is not to neg on our previous interface, but I think it's to talk about some of the challenges that we looked to solve as we brought out and really pulled the veil off of our brand new Ziflow 2.0 interface. So Mike, why don't we start with Ziflow 1.0?
Yeah, definitely. So looking at Ziflow 1.0, this is probably a screen that's very familiar for most of the people that are on this call. This is our dashboard area in Ziflow 1.0 that's giving me the, things I need. It's showing me the proofs in my list. It's giving me the ability to jump between folders and jump to connect and the people tab and everything else. But there's a lot of bouncing around involved on this screen. We can see at the top, I've got my proofs, I've got my connect tab, and the top right, I have my settings. And then when I actually want to start getting to work, I start navigating maybe now from left to right across the board. I can get into my filters, I can jump into my proof list and create proofs, and then I've got even more buttons scattered about in the top right. What this is it's a little bit visually overwhelming for people. The proof list in here can be a bit confusing and cumbersome to jump between different filters. And overall, it was something that while we got to know it really well and we really loved, we knew it could be improved. When I started here a year and a half ago is when the rumblings of Ziflow 2.0, the dashboard, were starting. And really the goal of it, as you kind of mentioned, was to make it easier for people to navigate through the dashboard. Of course, save some time, but really make the dashboard less overwhelming visually and still give you access to all of those amazing tools in Ziflow that you've come to know so well, and make it so that you can navigate it pretty easily, but do it in a way that's a little bit easier to digest on the screen. So jumping over to Ziflow 2.0, this is the new dashboard that we kind of presented, and that's now available to you in your Ziflow account. We can see it flows a lot more from left to right, starting with our reviews tab and then some of the other options on the left where you see the icon instead of that whole word listed, because as a power user, you're going to know what that button does. And of course, your settings and avatar are still in the bottom left to jump in there. You then move into your workspace area, where these have historically been called folders. We realized these really were more workspaces. These were areas where I was saving all of my content for a client and a campaign for them into one kind of general area and sharing it with my colleagues. It wasn't really a folder. It was a place we were working out of. And we've split that into two different areas: our general workspaces, which is everything in this account, or our shared workspaces, which are ones that I've been shared with because I'm collaborating into those as well. And then from there, we finally get into our filters and we get into this proof list, which I know there's some updates that I'm excited to show in here as well.
Mike, a few things just on the just at the outset. There's a lot of color coding that's happening here. This is not very staid or static. I can see that some of these reviews are sort of in progress or changes are required. You can see the little red line. And then the adventure newsletter live at the bottom, there's a green line there. You can see the status also from left to right, as opposed to trying to search around the page to find out whereabouts in the review process these reviews happen to be.
Yeah, I think you'll notice as a whole, there's a lot less checkboxes, which is something that on the old dashboard you would see a lot as you're maybe selecting proofs and things like that. And it does filter from left to right. Color coding is a pretty popular thing these days, and it visually represents the status of your proofs, which when you're logging into the dashboard, that's what you want to see. You want to see how these proofs are progressing through their approval process. And so right away, you're able to see that in the list. You're able to see that maybe in the stages. If you're someone who's really strong using custom properties, maybe even have that on your board as well.
Depending on the size of the company, Kim from Liberty Bankers Insurance Group is dialing in from Dallas right now. I'm sure that she's got perhaps hundreds of active reviews. If there's a lot of collateral happening, there's a lot of things going on. we can use views or sort of those tabs at the top of the
Yeah.
screen in order to provide some quick filtering down of the stuff that we want to pay attention to. And you've already created some of those filters here and can probably show us a little bit how to create one on your own.
Yeah. So I love what we've done with the different filters and different views we can create. You know, when I jump into a different filter on here, and maybe I'm adding my own, first of all, if I jump in and add something, maybe I want to see everything that's been created in the last 7 days. I don't have to hit save or launch to do that. We see it updates in the background for me automatically. If I start jumping into these different filters that I have up top, like the deadline this week or recent activity or static and video review, what we see is that I'm actually seeing different columns listed on the screen. If I go from, static review to deadline this week, instead of seeing, the information about the designer or information about the stages, I'm seeing, hey, what's the next deadline? And also what's the last activity? Because that's what's important to me in this view. You can save this just by going into your filter and adding the details. You can rename it. On my recent activity field, I actually have the most recent activity listed at top. And as I adjust this, if I want to save that to the view, I can. So really, it's all about just, again, presenting the most relevant information to you right away when you're in this dashboard so you can get to work and you're saving time and getting through the review process a bit quicker.
The other thing too, Mike, is that I noticed you mentioned that the columns change. So these aren't just saved filters. These are truly views that, depending on the context, you're actually viewing different information within these tabs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So as you do save filters, maybe you've got something new that you're working on. You want to go see all the views, the filters or proofs for a particular designer or for a particular client, and certain information is really important for that. As you do go to edit this filter and save it, you're able to save to the view. So if I add an additional filter about when something was created or things like that, and I save it to the view, it will save that column, it will save that filter. So we're just presented with that right away.
Interesting. So it can be as dynamic as you'd like it to be. So you can create your view, and then if you need to add something to it, if you want to add a new column, what have you, you can save and move forward with your day as opposed to trying to create a new view every single time.
Absolutely. It's always going to be there for you. You're going to be looking for the same views all the time as you're going through your natural work every day. And so just being able to save that right away is going to save you some time, and you can jump into what's important right away.
Staying on this recent activity view, Mike, you mentioned that we've gotten rid of check boxes on the left-hand side of every single one of these reviews, but I still want to select it and do something with it. Is there still a way for me to multi-select or select multiple or action upon these without having to jump into review details?
Yeah, of course. So as you click on things and we maybe use Control or Shift to select multiple, you're able to do that. And what we see at the bottom now is this bar that's giving us some quick options for working with these multiple selected proofs. Do I want to move them to a new folder? Do I want to lock them for review? Maybe I just want to grab a link to send these off to someone. We're able to bundle them together. Instead of checking it off, it's just using some of those natural keyboard shortcuts that we're all used to select or multi-select.
I love it. This is very much rows of information, columns, as it were. I think one of the things that our customers have talked to me about as the product marketing guy, but certainly to you as a solutions engineer, how do I make this dashboard more visual? How do I increase the clickable area? How do I see more of the event campaign or the Zello Bank campaign and give myself more of a visual indicator as to what it is I'm working with?
Yeah. So something that's been asked about since day one, I think literally the first demo I ever gave is Ziflow. Somebody wanted to see more of the thumbnail. They wanted to see more of what we eventually called a grid view. And we've added that to the tool. If I go up and hit instead of list view, I jump into grid view. What this is going to do is present me a clear thumbnail of what this proof actually is. I'm still getting some quick information like what the name of the proof is and the version number. I can still jump into the proof details, but I'm getting that more visual experience. So maybe those people who are in Ziflow all the time, but don't so much care about the project management aspect and are more of a reviewer, just want to see what they're looking for. They jump in, go to the grid view, and it's there.
Another thing we hear from customers quite frequently is the word proof is a little dated. It's very much an old school, static imagery. Hey, I've created a proof of this PDF. We're trying to evolve not just our visual architecture, but also our language and the way we describe what it is that a creative project manager is actually doing. And they are creating objects for review. Let's talk about that first.
I'm still trying to reprogram my brain to start saying review instead of proof. So as it slips in, forgive me. But absolutely, I mean, calling it reviews and not proofs makes it more common for maybe non-static assets, things like banners, videos, websites, so much so that you really won't see it too often in Ziflow anymore. Instead, when I go to create a new proof, as we used to say, now I'm going in and creating a new review. So Erik, this seems like a kind of natural point to move away from the dashboard and get into some of the features that we've done with the actual proof creation screen. Anything else you want me to jump into on that dashboard before we move forward?
No, let's keep going. But this modal view of how to create a new review is not just different than what it used to be, but also oddly familiar. I've still got that large drag and drop area. Brief, reviewers have still got that stuff, but it looks, that much more intuitive, I would say.
Yeah, and that's a good point, actually. If we go back into the old Ziflow experience, when you would go to create a proof, it would still have the drag and drop box. You'd still have the ability to go drop your workflow in and add all this different information. But the most common feedback we were getting is that there's a complicated list of things that need to be done when you're creating a proof. You can see just for me, it's asking me to drop in all these workflow stages. I don't even really know where to go to add a workflow template necessarily. I have to scroll all the way to the bottom. And some people we know, they need to scroll to the bottom before they create a proof, just because they want to make sure all the settings are accurately filled out. What we've kind of pivoted away to is a smaller bit of real estate from the proof creation. It's not even really a separate screen anymore. We can still see the dashboards kind of in the background. And there's a lot less scrolling, and really you only have to click into what you need to change. We were starting to rely a lot more on default settings when you drop a workflow in, things like that. So looking at this proof creation, maybe we're going to call this our adventure. We'll call it the adventure review. We'll drop our files in. We can multi-drag and drop. We can go through and browse the computer or drop your website in, and we'll bring in a couple. Maybe we're bringing in the adventure video for this. We also want to go through and grab a brochure. I'll even drop in a website as well, just to make it a little bit easy for us to start proofing. Something I do want to point out here inside of the window is you may have seen this pop up, this choose review type. When we do a batch review proof, we're uploading multiple assets into one. It would pop up kind of underneath. Now we actually get this pop-up box that is asking us, what do we want to do? Do we want to create 3 separate reviews, or do we want to combine them into one and merge? For today, we'll keep it simple. We'll go with just the website. And now on the right, we see a list of items to go through. Now, everything's kind of presented to me as this is what this is. I don't really need to click in unless I want to change something. For reviewers, it's really obvious to me how I add a workflow template, which is heavily relied upon by our customers. They're constantly doing the same work. They're constantly working with the same templates. And so right away I say here, okay, let's add my workflow template. Let's choose my favorite and replace it. And I'll see what that flow is going to be. Instead of going through and having to check all the changes for the different users, we're now presented with this template of what this user can do. And if we need to change it, we'll jump in there and adjust. We've got icons instead of having that expansion list where we would scroll through all the settings for each stage to adjust. And we've also got this diagram view, which will give us a really clear view of how this proof is going to move from one group of approvers to the next. Now, we probably also want to jump into some of these integration options that are happening. Ziflow Connect is also evolving. Erik, I don't know if you want to touch on that at all first before I jump into how we can do it from the screen.
Ziflow Connect 2.0 is also on our agenda, so let's dive in. I think this is really the merger of Ziflow 2.0 and then every other part of your creative process that could live in other parts of your creative tech stack. And this actually puts that creative tech stack front and center during the course of creating a new review, and as we'll hopefully find out later, as the course of managing your existing creative workflow.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And as people who are intimately familiar with Ziflow and Ziflow Connect and working with the project management tool like Monday or Asana or Wrike or any of these other ones, we used to have to rely a lot on custom properties for bringing in a task ID or an item ID. We've changed that process. Now, if I click into this integration section, I actually see a native integration for Monday or Slack or any other tool that I've enabled in here. For Monday, I can actually go through and choose my board. I know I'm working on this assets and review board right now. And the item that currently exists for this adventure review is called the adventure review. There we go. It's right there. If I want to send to a Slack channel, I can load all of my Slack channels as well and have something pinged off to there to say, hey, this new proof's been created. So we've got
But
the
also
Monday
within
integration.
integrations. I can also have it, so I can select an existing item within Monday, or if I
Yeah.
leave it blank, just the existence of this new review is going to prompt a new item to be born within that board that I've selected, correct?
Exactly. And really any way we want to work. It's kind of a mix from what I've seen. People will either create a new item in that board or a new sub item when the proof's created, or that thing's already in progress. And now we want to start sending updates to it from Ziflow. So we'll connect the two. So really how you want to work, we'll help draft it for it. There's a lot of power of what we can do between the two tools.
It's fantastic. And I love the way integrations is placed, like basically one rung beneath your workflow. It's that important to somebody's creative process is to have it that above the scroll. Let's make sure we get this configured, because of the fact that we know that good creative isn't built in a day, and it's not built with one tool only. There's a litany of things that are involved.
There's so many things involved, and we really want to be that kind of area in the middle to help these tools talk together. We'll do the creative collaboration, but what we'll see once we get through here, and we can also see there's some other settings applied, but I'm just going to go with the default settings. I don't need to click in and change it. When I create this proof, Ziflow is really going to go to work for me. It's going to upload this adventure review. In this case, it was a website, and everybody who's created a proof knows it takes 10-15 seconds to get that uploaded. Once this is done, though, what we'll see here in a second is this adventure review item in my pre-review board. It's going to update with my status because I've connected the two. It's going to update with the review link, the version number, and it will move it onto the board just by leveraging the connections and integrations in Monday and Ziflow. And again, this works in a litany of other tools within Ziflow as well.
So you mentioned a litany of other tools. If you could, Mike, before we get into the review detail screen, which I think is important, can you jump over to the Connect panel, which is updated as a result of Ziflow Connect 2.0? We've got a whole host of applications. And as Trisha from New Mexico, Land of Enchantment, had just asked, we do, in fact, integrate with Reich. It is one of the many applications that we have on our Ziflow Connect 2.0 screen, with many more to be added soon. As you see, we've got Salesforce in beta right there. We got ClickUp and Asana, Basecamp, Monday.com. Smart Sheets on the way somewhere down the road. We've got plenty of opportunities to have these types of Ziflow Connect apps. Yeah. And I think they're now presented in a much more visually appealing way and can show those connections and give you some settings within that connection itself when you click on them.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I also want to note, if you're not seeing the tool that you're using listed on here, that doesn't mean we can't connect it. We've got our own webhook. We have an open API. We can really send information to any application that's going to allow us to do so. So if you're using something that's not listed, like, Airtable is one that comes up all the time. We don't have an Airtable app yet, but we work with Airtable companies, updating their statuses, updating their projects, just by using our own kind of API connections.
Caitlin had asked that, do we have to enable integration somewhere within the settings to get this to show up? Could you click on that Monday.com link right there and show how we can get it to show up?
Yeah, so if you're connecting your tool, you have to do, of course, the connection to get the two tools authorized to talk to each other. And then we'll see the settings tab. If you want that application field to show up on the proof or the review, you would simply toggle it to show. That's now going to allow you to see the two. We'll be able to pull that list of your boards and your items on the board into that proof in the details section.
Now, when you talk about the proof details section, Mike, let's say we've created a
review details. We got to catch ourselves there.
Sorry, review details. I know.
I'm doing the same
I'm guilty
thing.
of this too. I do product marketing for a living. I'm guilty of this too. Let's say we're actually now managing an existing creative workflow on our dashboard. And I want to see how things are interacting with my integrations or where things are in my workflow. And I want to look at the review details screen. Can we take a look at that in the new Ziflow 2.0?
Yeah. And as people probably remember, in the proof details in the old view, when I would click into the details of something, I'd have to scroll all the way to the bottom for these different ones. I'd have the long list, it'd take me open, and have to go through everything. As I scroll, check all the details, check all the settings, check all the information that's happened. Now, today, when I click on a proof, what we'll see in this details tab is tabs instead of a long list to scroll through. I've got my workflow. I've got my brief if I want to go see the brief. If I want to see information about the integration, I can. This adventure review item that we just updated, I can click directly into it and it will take me into Monday and show me the item details of what was updated. Activity and emails. We still have that full activity log of all the details that have happened with this proof saved on here. It's just now in the tab. So again, makes it a little bit more digestible for us.
And not only that, your workflow is the primary thing you're probably going to be looking at as a creative project manager. You probably won't be going to the brief. You probably won't be going to, all of these different tabs. So you're basically putting the tab that's the most important to you pretty much at front and center. And then that's what's your eye is focused to, what you are drawn to. And again, saving those precious microseconds during the course of managing this process. Yeah,
you're pulled in right away. So I'm in my workflow. I can see it in that list view that we're familiar with and kind of see how it can flow from stage 1 to stage 2. Or again, I can jump into that diagram. And when I'm in that diagram view, it's just going to show me the people that are relevant for it. You can see the design team. You can still see that SOCD bar if Carol's opened this or not. It's still going to give me that kind of visual representation of that.
Instantly at a glance without having to scroll through it. It's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And even there, the proof details, there's still that bottom bar if we click on it, with just some quick options to share or open the proof, things like that.
I love it. Another thing that we introduced this quarter or this past summer was a new Zybot back within our Connect architecture to send an email when a particular prompt had happened. I know it seems like within our integrations panel, within review details, that Slack, Teams, some of the more instantaneous communications architecture is there, but good old email is still important. And we've listened to a lot of our customers' feedback, and we wanted to add a new Zybot where an email itself would be the result of those various triggers. Can we take a look at that for a second?
Yeah, actually, let's look at the workflow really quick. If I jump into my Connect tab here, and I go to my workflow for a deadline changed email, this is actually kind of showing off 2 new Zybot features we have. In this flow, the trigger is an update to our stage. So in this case, it'd be the stage of the proof. And the trigger in there is that a deadline is changed on there. What this will then do is choose my send email Zybot, and I can choose what's going to happen. I can update the proof owner. I can update the reviewers on the stage, anybody in there with a custom message that lets them know that, hey, that deadline has changed. So when we do go in here, and let's say we do change this deadline from the 28th and we give ourselves the weekend to get through it, Ziflow will recognize that change happened, and we'll see in this email tab here in a second, a new email go out about how the proof has been updated and we've been sent this new kind of message that this has changed.
Mike, you just changed the deadline, but you didn't have to press a save button. There wasn't any additional prompting, any additional clicking to save something within the review details.
Yeah. Isn't that slick? That's just a huge time saver. So one, here's that email that came through. It told me, hey, the deadline's changed. So I have been made aware there. But yeah, as I do update things, as I change the workflow, as I make those deadline changes again, I just say done and it goes. If I share this with someone else, I'll add an additional user. It just goes. I no longer need to hit save changes. I mean, how many times, Eric and Nick too, probably, have you made a bunch of changes to a proof, hit the X on the tab, and nothing happens? We'll eliminate that, eliminate some clicks. Just, again, make things a little bit easier for everybody.
Real quick, Mike, let's go back to the actual Zybot setup for send email. One of the things I like the most about it is the fact that it is, again, incredibly familiar. If you've configured notification emails or you've configured hourly or daily digests on proofs, you know what this screen looks like. You can use the mail merge fields, bring in the dynamic names of proofs, or if a new reviewer was added, all of that stuff is also included in this architecture. It's not brand new. It is something that, again, you're familiar with, and it allows for all of the functionality you would expect when it comes to providing instantaneous and automated communication to your stakeholders. Yeah,
it's easy. There's no coding that's involved, which I love how most of our Zybots avoid any actual real technical knowledge to be able to set these things up, regardless of if it's something as simple as sending an email or hooking up to Monday or Asana or ClickUp or Wrike or any of these other ones. It's just putting the pieces of the puzzle together in a way that makes sense.
I love it. This is good stuff. Mike, I think what we want to do now is leave Ziflow 2.0. It will remain in our hearts, but step aside for a second and get into the Ziflow viewer. Before I do that, I just want to ask everybody within earshot here on our webinar, how many of you have already switched your experience to Ziflow 2.0? Is it something of interest to you now? Are you planning on doing so in the future? Give us a response to that poll, Mike, as you get into the Ziflow viewer and talk about some of the new updates that we've made there over this past season.
Yeah, and actually, I think before we even get to that, for those of you that are on the phone and are interested in changing to the new viewer, if you go into your settings, let me actually switch back to the old one real quick. In this old layout, you'll see in your settings, once it loads there, as I click in to my general settings, there's this new dashboard 2.0 option at the bottom. Now, I would recommend probably just clicking both of these, to be kind of a slow rollout maybe, or a slow transition. So for now, you might allow users to switch between the dashboard experiences. So how I switch from version 1 to version 2 in the settings, I have that. You'll enable the new dashboard, you'll allow users to switch, and maybe in a couple of weeks, once we've kind of fully transitioned to 2.0, we uncheck that other box.
So once again, there's basically 3 different states here. There is the state where just the bottom switch is on, which basically gives somebody the ability to switch between dashboard experiences. There's a state where both switches are on, which basically prompts people to have the default experience be dashboard 2.0, but give them the ability to switch back. And then the third state would be the top switch is on and the bottom switch is off, which is administrators basically telling people the default experience now and forevermore will be Ziflow 2.0. So that's really the merger of those 2 switches into 3 different states. And what we would encourage admins to do right now, Mike, as you said, toggle both switches on, give people the opportunity to have Ziflow 2.0. If they want to switch back, they can. Or the other option would be toggle just the bottom switch on and encourage your users to migrate over to 2.0 when they see fit. Of course, this is Ziflow 2.0. It's the new hotness, and our plan is to deprecate or sunset 1.0 at some point in the distant future. So Ziflow 2.0 will be the default experience at some point somewhere down the road.
Yeah, and important note, we're going to continue to build on 2.0. Just make it a better experience from now until forever. So keep an eye out for that switch. You'll also see just a prompt in your account. It'll ask if you want to try out the new dashboard as well. So that'll help you get there. In your day-to-day use.
I love it. 69% of respondents to our poll are planning on switching over to Ziflow 2.0 very soon. My hope is that it had something to do with the 2 of us and our very well-rehearsed conversation that we're having on this webinar. And 25% of our attendees have already switched over, and they're stoked about it. So I'm very, 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 very excited to continue developing on and adding new features to Ziflow 2.0 and telling the whole world about them over these next few months.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, excited. I hope you give it a try. And I guess now moving away from 2.0 on the dashboard and Connect, we get into just a few changes that have happened to the proof viewer. So the real kind of bread and butter of this tool in our actual collaboration area, where we're marking up, making decisions, and providing feedback. So in this screen, it looks the same. Of course, we haven't really done many changes here visually as to how we can review a proof. But I do want to point out a couple of cool things that may have happened behind the scenes, and that those of you reviewing for the past couple of weeks may have already noticed. The first one is in comparison. When I go to compare, Erik, let me know, do these proofs, let me resize them a little bit here. Do you see any real differences between these 2 at a glance?
Mike, I'll be honest with you, they look basically the same to me. Is there a text thing? They look functionally similar, I would say, right?
Well, if we click on my comment here, we can see we're missing the trademark logo on Zello Bank, the new Ziflow banking app coming soon to your app store. Now,
we're not releasing.
That's not true. That's not true. Yes. Now we can see I called that out. Our artist Anna did get on it, as you can kind of see on the left. But maybe I'm just really looking at this and I'm not sure. Those of you who've been proofing for the past few weeks may have noticed in our auto compare settings this new ability to blink differences. Now, at a glance, you can kind of faintly see the TM is popping up there. It's being highlighted in blue. But I love the ability we've added to overlay backgrounds. If we drop a dark background in there, it becomes very clear to us where that change has occurred and that it has occurred. My one bit of feedback for Anna on the earlier version of this proof was we need to add that TM on there so we don't run into any issues. It's been included. We're now good to go.
I think this is so important because, while a lot of reviews from version 1 to version 2 are going to be large scale, massive changes to the review itself, whereas when you get into version 3 to version 4, it's this tiny, minutia. And when you can blink the differences and it doesn't require somebody to zoom in or sort of, provide additional focus on the areas that they had commented on, they can more easily say, okay, cool, mission accomplished. Let's move forward, make a decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to make it really easy for you to pick up these changes. Something else I want to point out in here is you'll notice that there is a reply to this comment. Now, let's say it was missed. Let's say we didn't update this and I need to bring this comment forward. We have changed it so that you can now copy a comment with replies. This is going to make it really easy for you to bring a whole conversation over rather than having to copy and paste or just copy the top comment and re-tag Anna or any of your colleagues in the bottom part.
Oh, so it brings the tags as well. So when I hit post, Anna Designer is automatically tagged. Oh, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So there's another thing too. There's 2 different columns of text here. And I feel like if I wanted to highlight like just the top paragraph of each column, that would be more of a pain in the butt in the past. But we've introduced a feature that makes it easier to do that now.
We have, and it's as simple as holding the shift key down and just pulling over this text. Instead of having like the kind of weird, awkward highlighting, trying to adjust, you hit shift, this will recognize your text. I keep missing it, but there we go. And you can now either choose just the one column or you can choose multiple. So it's a little easier.
By holding the shift key as you are, sort of opening up an invisible rectangle across this text.
Pretty much just by holding the shift key, dragging it across and selecting the text that's most relevant to the comment that you're making. So as we can see, that's going to bring in this whole column. We're going to ignore that second one because that's not pertinent to this conversation.
If you can go back to version 1 of this document, if I've got multiple designers working on a particular image or a particular piece of material, how will it never in the past there would never really be an indicator when I'm looking at the comment pins or the markup itself that was actually accomplished, that particular task was done. So again, if multiple designers have access to this file, whether it be within the cloud or otherwise, they could be doing redundant work, quite frankly. But now we've got a little visual indicator that says, oh no, this is already accomplished.
Yeah, so we can see the check mark on there on the comment. So this was commented in blue, check mark. We can see it's been resolved. If you go into like the comments and settings in the top right, we can now see comments as pins, as markups, or just as none, which will kind of clear the board unless you clicked onto a comment. So yeah, that comment pin is just going to say, hey, right here, right, unclick this, collapse it. That's been checked off. That's been taken care of. If we mark this up a ton, we'd be lit up. If we want to just see it as is, we'd turn those pins off and just see the asset itself.
If you're a Ziflow administrator, you're more than likely received a bunch of emails from myself and others, our newsletters and in-app messaging to talk about the fact that the original Ziflow Viewer, Ziflow Viewer 1.0, is going to be deprecated at the end of September. So all of the features that you're seeing here, Mike, the ability to blink differences, the ability to have a background overlay, auto compare in a general sense, which is a feature that we are very much in love with. The ability to copy comments, the opportunity to highlight blocks of text, all of that stuff is not available in Ziflow Viewer 1.0. So Ziflow Viewer 2.0, we would encourage you to enable that for all of your reviewers moving forward, because that's where all the newest features will be. And then, of course, at the end of September, Ziflow Viewer 1.0 will slowly be sunset and disappear.
Yeah, I mean, for good reason. There's a lot of added benefit in this new viewer. This new layout is giving us a lot of different features to be able to get to that approved state of approve a little quicker with the blink differences, with the comment pins, with some advanced commenting features. So absolutely. If you're not on it yet, which there's just very few of you who are still using Ziflow 1.0 in the review tool, it's definitely time to move across to get this added functionality in your day-to-day work.
Mike, being cognizant of time, we've got 2 more features that we released this quarter that bear mention but don't necessarily bear demo. Can you go back to the presentation and we can show off our
of course,
our those 2 additional features, which are the first being very much a security-based feature to prevent people from being outside of your particular review team from being mentioned and added to a proof. That's sort of that new setting within the settings there. Can you talk through that a little bit, Mike?
Yeah, so there's this ability when you @mention people in the settings, you can turn it on. You can @mention only people are in the proof or only people that are in your account. And there could be instances where maybe you @mention the wrong person and they get brought into something that is a little bit higher security needed. So this is going to allow us to prevent data leakage and really just make sure your team or your colleagues are only tagging the people that they should be in this particular proof.
The other thing too here, I think, is more and more brands, agencies, and otherwise are creating video content that is more inclusive of those with hearing impairments. So adding in subtitles to their video reviews, this is a feature that allows you to, when you're exporting thumbnails in a PDF export, you can see the subtitles that were added during the course of the review.
Yeah, so whether you're uploading it with like an SRT file or something like that for the actual review process, when you export all of those comments to a PDF to store somewhere, to share with somebody, you'll also see how the thumbnail was presented on that frame or those clips when you added that comment. So just again, a little bit more visually appealing and more inclusive of our colleagues across the globe who maybe are visually impaired or not visually impaired, hearing impaired, just so we can make sure those thumbnails are available to them in all aspects of the review process.
We have a poll that's active right now asking our attendees if they've ever used auto compare. Have you used the auto compare feature in Ziflow's compare mode? We'll leave that poll open for just a second more. Mike, I'd love to have you show off our product release roundup video that we released on our YouTube video this morning, giving ample opportunity for our attendees to fill out more questions in our Q&A functionality here within the Zoom webinar. And then we'll be right back after the video to answer those questions live and answer a few via text. Summer's here, and Ziflow's latest release roundup is a scorcher, packed with updates that'll set fire to your review and approval process. Let's dive in. We're proud to introduce Ziflow 2.0, a groundbreaking rebuild of our creative workflow dashboard. We've reimagined every aspect of this industry-leading interface to bring you an unparalleled user experience. Say goodbye to the old ways of navigating. With Ziflow 2.0, we've strategically relocated key elements, creating a dashboard that's cleaner and easier to use. For example, we've rebuilt our filtering engine to help you organize and identify your creative reviews in only a click, so you can track the progress of your projects faster than ever before. We've introduced new visual experiences, including an engrossing new grid view that offers a comprehensive and clickable summary of all of your reviews. But that's not all. Our updated interface for creating new reviews is more streamlined than ever, helping you begin a new approval process even faster. We've expanded our drag and drop capabilities, making uploading new versions and moving reviews into folders as easy as moving an icon from one place to another. Dive even deeper into a project with our new and intuitive review detail screen, where any changes you make are automatically saved, saving you from having to confirm them manually. These are just some of the changes we've made with Ziflow 2.0, and there's so much more in store. Join us on this journey today by switching to our new dashboard and take your creative workflow to the next level. Your design process doesn't exist in a vacuum, and you don't manage it using one software solution. So we built Ziflow Connect to help you integrate with nearly every other tool in your creative tech stack. And we're happy to announce that Ziflow Connect has gotten even better. Inside Ziflow 2.0, we've added seamless task integration for the apps you've already connected, for when you're creating a new review and staying in the loop on an existing one. When kicking off a new approval process, you can now more easily locate and associate the existing elements of a project hosted in a connected app. Or let Ziflow create a new task inside the app once the review is saved. And on the details panel, you can stay in the loop on the progress of the project, including the name, status, the people responsible, and more. Want more information?
Click the link right from inside the widget to go directly to the project in your connected app. Even connecting new apps to Ziflow has gotten an upgrade. You can browse through the menu of our out-of-the-box integrations right from inside the new Ziflow 2.0. By the way, did you see that new logo in Ziflow Connect's menu of apps? It's right, one of the industry leaders in project management software. Get ready to accelerate your team's creative workflow by connecting Ziflow to Asana, Monday.com, Wrike, and a whole host of other applications through our new Ziflow Connect screen. Compare mode inside of Ziflow's award-winning viewer has also gotten a few updates this summer. When looking at two versions of an asset, click on Auto Compare and discover two additional settings: blink differences and background overlay. The first toggle makes all of the visible differences between the two assets pulsate, immediately drawing the reviewer's attention to the elements that have changed. The second one allows you to overlay a dark or a light background over the newer version. The differences retain their normal brightness, with the contrast revealing the nuances between the two distinct assets. These compelling new settings make it even easier to verify changes between versions, increasing the velocity of your review and approval process. We've heard from customers who've wanted more automated ways to engage with their stakeholders via email. This summer, we introduced a Zybot that'll help them do just that. You can use Zybots to build repeatable actions that can affect different parts of your design process. They're fully configurable and will work with a ton of outside applications through our Ziflow Connect architecture. Our brand new Send Email Zybot allows you to send an email with almost anything in your creative workflow acting as a trigger. Whether it's a review deadline that's changed, an outside collaborator added to a review process, or nearly any other inciting event, our new Zybot's got you covered. The result? Customized emails sent automatically to the recipients of your choosing. That's a lot of amazing features, but we're not done yet. Here's a rapid-fire list of the updates we've made to Ziflow's viewer these past few months. We've enhanced our copy comment feature in compare mode by allowing reviewers to effortlessly copy and transfer entire comment threads between versions of an asset. Reviewers can now select text with greater precision using a new rectangle text selection mode. Just hold the Shift key to highlight specific blocks of text as opposed to continuous sentences. Admins in Ziflow now have more control over who can be @mentioned in comments, a way to specify subsets of users who can be brought into a review, which mitigates the risk of sensitive info being accessed by the wrong people. We've added the ability to display video subtitles next to relevant thumbnails in the PDF reports you export from Ziflow, enabling a seamless offline review process for teams working with inclusive video content. Finally, a small check now appears next to comment pins that have been resolved. A small but important visual indicator that will all but eliminate redundant work by a group of designers. You might think the features our team delivered this summer are pretty hot, but trust us, we're just getting warmed up. Stick around. We here at Ziflow can't wait to show you what we're cooking up next.
Boy, if you think that guy's voice is annoying, you should hear it in your head 24 hours a day. That was our product release roundup video. We were so excited to share with all of you, active on our YouTube page right now. And then Mike obviously auto played some soothing acoustic guitar music, which is wonderful, which would be a great soundtrack for us to answer your questions via the Q&A functionality here within Zoom. One of the biggest questions is from Regine. Is the Smartsheets integration available? It is not yet available within our Ziflow Connect screen. That is something we are aiming for late Q3, early Q4 to have it within our menu of integrations. But Mike, you've talked through this a bunch of times. Our ability to do webhooks and our open API allows for us to create Smartsheets integrations via API hookups, even right now, apropos having a dedicated app within our Ziflow Connect screen.
Yeah, it's something we've done before. It's all based around like a trigger sending something to Smartsheets and maybe updating a task or creating a new one. So Smartsheet does have an API block where we are able to send information to an endpoint. Basically, we find out information about the board in Smartsheets that you're using, and then the actual item within that board. Ziflow will then send an update to it. So it's something that, if you want to reach out, we can kind of give you some information outside of this on how that would work. But it's just all about having a trigger in Ziflow, pass information along, using the existing API, open API that Smartsheet has.
Help.ziflow.com, great place to look. I believe there's a Smartsheets Help Center article there. Regine, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, which will do in a pinch until such time late Q3, early Q4, we get a Smartsheets app within the Ziflow Connect screen. Let's stay with integrations for a moment. What are the advantages of using Slack instead of the email notifications we're used to? Lisa mentions that as one of her questions here in our Q&A. I personally, as a Ziflow user myself, I like hourly digests. I like, finding out for a particular project to be notified, within the hour, because look, at the end of the day, 60 minutes should be more than enough time for me to dive back into the proof in case I have to address any comments myself. But for really pressing projects, Slack is a good other way to notify somebody and more instantaneously. Right now, this you need to pay attention to, right? Mike, would you agree with that? That the sort of the combination of Slack on a daily or hourly, email on a daily or an hourly digest basis is good, but some projects demand more instantaneous notifications using Slack or Microsoft Teams.
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on how you and your team work at the end of the day. Personally, I know if you send me a Slack message, I'm going to look at it right away. It'll just pop up on my phone. If you send me an email, I might swipe it away and go check on it in 20 minutes. So if it is maybe a bit more urgent, maybe we send a Slack notification to a Teams, a channel in Slack that says, hey, so-and-so mark this proof as changes required. So I know right away, hey, I'm ready to get to work on that. It just depends on how you want to work, what your personal notification preferences are. And then we can help craft it from there. Teams is another one. It's really cool. You can embed Ziflow into the Teams channel viewer. So it's right there. When you get the notification, you jump into Teams and start working.
Oh, that's interesting. You never actually leave Teams. You're in Teams the whole time. And you can embed a web browser link into the Teams channels, and Ziflow works fully through there. So you get that notification in your Teams channel. You click the tab that says Ziflow, you're brought right to your dashboard and into the proof viewer. That's cool.
Yeah.
Staying with integrations, not Teams related, back to Asana, which I think is very, very popular amongst creative project managers, marketing operations managers. Mike, talk through a little bit about how we work with Asana. If you can go to the Connect screen and sort of show that Asana app. I think some of the questions that particularly Kate had was, does it show all of the changes in Ziflow in Asana's comments?
Yeah, so another one that just depends on how you want to work between the two. You kind of might have seen a little bit in that video that we played. It basically ran through our Connect update with Asana instead of what we saw with Monday earlier. So maybe when we create an Asana or create a proof inside of Ziflow or review, we want to send those status updates to Asana. We can add comments to an Asana item as well. We'll go through actually here. Maybe we in Ziflow create a new proof, and then we want to maybe create an Asana task, update an Asana task column, or update in a section in an Asana task. Just depends on what information you find relevant inside of Ziflow that could also be good inside of Asana. There is also some options from Asana that are really cool where you can create a new review out of the Asana board. We actually have an integration in the tool. So maybe you've added a file to this task in Asana already. You can click and say, hey, I want to create a proof with this now as well.
Review. Gosh, we have to drum this word proof out of our brains.
Well, give us a week. It's still new.
I almost feel like I need to have a swear jar where I just drop a quarter in every single time I use the word proof. Kim asks, when does Ziflow 2.0 fully kick off? Ziflow 2.0 is available to all of our users
fully kicked off
right now. As Ziflow administrators, it's up to you when you encourage your other reviewers or other dashboard people who have access to the dashboard to use it. And we do not have a set timeline as to when Ziflow 1.0 will go away. We are obviously, planning on that. It's going to be a gradual deprecation process. We certainly don't want to, leave anybody feeling like, out in the cold. But that is something that will eventually happen at a date down the road. So Kim, hope we answer that question. Mike, once again, there's the area within Ziflow 1.0 or actually within your general settings where you can, as an admin, enable it for your end users.
Yeah.
Joe had a question. Can the email notification include more details about the change in date? So this date changed from blank to blank. Frankly, Joe, I think that's a great idea. The ability to add a token that says, previous state to new or current state. So that's something we can explore. We'll put that on our backlog. We don't do anything here at Ziflow without our users coming to us and saying, hey, what more can I do with this tool? How more accelerated can I make my creative workflow? So it's requests just like that, Joe, that help us really, improve and shape and refine our product roadmap moving forward. Jason asked, is creating a proof from Wrike part of the Wrike integration? Hopefully coming soon. Once again, when you think about the notion of integrations, our Ziflow Connect screen is easy access for our users to connect outside applications directly to Ziflow. But then there's a world where we have our own app within these various app marketplaces. And it is our aim to make sure that we have our own Ziflow app in each of the app marketplaces for any of the major project management tools. So if it doesn't exist now, it is coming soon. It is our goal to be able to accomplish that. I don't think there's a ton of other questions that have yet to have been answered. Otherwise, they had been answered via text. Mike, why don't we go back to the presentation and talk briefly about some final logistics here before we send everybody on their way, and encourage them to share the recording of this webinar to their friends and colleagues. Speaking of webinars, we have a webinar coming up on Tuesday, August 22nd. It is the State of Creative Workflow webinar. Myself and Adara Bowen from the American Marketing Association are going to be talking about some of the biggest key takeaways from the largest industry survey in the creative project management industry. That is the State of Creative Workflow. It's out right now. You can find it on our website. But we're going to talk through some of those takeaways in a live webinar Tuesday, the 22nd, noon Eastern time. We encourage you all to attend. Reserve your spot right now at ziflow.com. And then final logistics here, Mike, if you want to move one slide forward, we'll talk a little bit about what happens next. Ziflow's YouTube channel. Our webinar will be available to share with your colleagues tomorrow. And right now, our summer roundup video is available to watch and share and partake in, comment on. We would love any and all interaction. Ziflow's Help Center, as we mentioned earlier, help.ziflow.com, includes a whole host of articles, even almost like self-guided training to bring you and your team up to speed on all things Ziflow. And if you have any other questions, even more in-deep and technical questions that didn't get answered during the course of this product release roundup webinar, I would encourage you to go to ziflow.com/schedule a call to meet one-on-one with a representative, or contact your own customer support representative who you may have already been introduced to during the course of your onboarding and introduction to Ziflow. That is the end of our summer product release roundup webinar. We cannot thank you enough for attending, and we cannot wait to see you again later on this year, not just with our State of Creative Workflow webinar, but for our future product release roundup webinars coming up later on in 2023. Thank you so much for attending, and have a sparkling day.